Everyone hates this question, and whether you like it or not, you'll have to answer it at some point when being interviewed for a job. The question is, what are your greatest weaknesses? Like, oh man, why does this question even exist? And how do you even answer that? Well, you're in the right place, because as much as you hate this question, along with everyone else in the world, there are really good ways to answer it and really bad ways, which could mean getting the job you're applying for or not getting it. In the next couple minutes, we're going to dive into the question head on and share 3 simple tips you can use to get ready for the dreaded question, what are your greatest weaknesses? But before we begin, let's just clarify a couple things you should never do. Some no-nos of what never to say. First thing to never say is, I have no weaknesses. Listen, everyone has weaknesses, including you. And by saying you have none shows a big lack of self-awareness and dishonesty. 2 things an employer does not want in their future employee. Second no-no is don't say, I have never thought of that before. That just means you didn't prepare and you didn't recognize there's some things in life that you could potentially improve. And now that you're watching this video, you definitely have no excuses. You know what's coming at you. Lastly, don't ever do the, my greatest weaknesses are my greatest strengths. Like, who are you trying to fool here? For example, answering the question with, well, sometimes I'm too detailed. Like, oh great, we might hire someone that pays attention to detail. It's not gonna work, so don't do it. The employer is gonna read right through it. All right, now that we got those don'ts out of the way, let's get into this. Let's chat about the 3 things you need to do to answer the question, what are your greatest weaknesses? Number 1, brainstorm ahead of time and make a list. There's a pretty solid chance you'll be asked this question at some point. So rather than letting it catch you by surprise, having a few good examples to fire off is perfect. Simply just write down a small list of 2 to 3 weaknesses you have, and if you have a tough time thinking, just Google a list of common weaknesses and see if any stand out to you that you could relate to. Maybe it's that you have a really tough time sharing ideas in a large group of people. Or maybe it's that you share your opinions way too much and always have to be the first one to speak. Pick a few and write them down. Number 2, make sure to look over the job description and not list weaknesses that are relevant to the actual job you're applying for. So for example, if you're applying for a customer service position, don't say your biggest weakness is customer service. It's not going to work out for you. Look at the list you've created and choose one that is not one of the main things for your future job. Last but not least, always have an improvement plan. Always make sure when you talk about your weaknesses, you're also talking about the steps you're taking to improve it. Employers want to know you're self-aware enough to recognize weaknesses, but that you also have a plan to work on it and improve it. So if you say, well, I'm very shy, so one of my biggest weaknesses is that I always hesitate to share my ideas in front of a group. However, I've noticed that my ideas are really good, so I've been practicing sharing at least one thing every time I'm in a group meeting or a discussion. I've always been reading a book, or I have been reading a book, on How to Talk to Anyone, Anywhere, at Any Time by Larry King. And I really see myself improving. So I'm hoping over time this practice will help me be more confident when it comes to sharing my ideas in front of others. Not only have you been honest in an area you're weak at, but you've also shared an improvement plan to better yourself based on your weakness, and showed that you think it's important to actually be bettering your skills. They're gonna love it. So to sum it all up, stay away from the no-nos, the don'ts, the never do it. I have none, I've never thought about it, or my biggest weaknesses are my greatest strengths. Just scrap it, don't do it. And do these 3 things. Brainstorm ahead of time and write out a small list of weaknesses. Stay away from listing weaknesses that are relevant to the job description. And lastly, make sure that your weaknesses have an improvement plan. If you do these things, the one question that everybody hates may just be that one question you impress your future employer with.